What is it?
Project. Yeah. 1 week ago, I have submitted project topic. My project topic.
We
Uh,
can't hear you.
Ma'am, actually, he is asking about something about project. So, Mohammad Kedar,
Okay.
in between, you can please write in the chat box.
No, about the project today, after we discuss this, we will discuss about the project, whatever queries you have, okay? Because now whatever 4 units we are doing today, most of you are familiar with it. Because this course, the same in a different contextual thing we discuss. So after this, we can discuss.
okay.
I think I have not seen you before. Have you attended the last classes?
I
Yeah,
think he
yeah,
was here.
yeah.
He was
Mostly,
here.
I was there. Mostly, I was there.
Okay, okay, okay.
So, ma'am, I have started recording and you can please
Yeah.
proceed. Thank you
Okay.
very much for being patient.
Okay, okay. Okay then. So in today's class, what we will discuss, we'll interact about. Till now, we have discussed about the various aspects of rehabilitation and reconstruction. Today, we discuss about, in general, about the philosophy of coping with disasters. Like disaster is something that really it requires a lot of courage to cope. Don't you think? Because at times the nature plays such a havoc that one needs that strength, mental and physical, to cope with the disasters. So when we talk of the philosophy of coping with disasters, as we all have been discussing before, like we need to know what is risk, what is hazard, the people need to know, and what are the various vulnerability conditions. They should be able to know that why is it that disasters are, we are talking about the common person. So the common person should be able to know why the disasters are taking place and what is the impact of it, so that the community is able to deal with the effects of these damaging events. Because in some places, the natural hazards occur with such regularity that some systems are in place, but then those systems at times become outdated or they need to be strengthened. So the basically what we say is the community has to be strengthened. So the philosophy of coping with disaster should be ingrained in the community. See, whenever disaster plans, we talked about disaster planning, and I think you must have read about disaster plans in the course on preparedness also. So, when we talk of disaster planning, like first is the first level, there are 3 levels of disaster planning. First level is any disaster occurs, immediately it's not that you rush him to a hospital nearby or anything. First is we assess and see what are the resources that are available locally. So a localized casualty management that is done, where local resources are available, like giving of immediate first aid, giving of some food, water, and also CPR. So all these things to to make the person breathe properly, all this, and also triage. Do you know what is triage? You must have discussed in the disaster medicine. There is something called triage. Can anybody say what is triage? Triage, triage. Yeah. Dumba.
Yes. Yeah, good evening, good
Good
morning
evening.
where you are. Yeah, triage is like classifying or sorting out the the victims in accordance to their conditions.
Yeah.
There are those who need immediate um, treatment, and there are those who can wait. So that is generally classifying patients according to the conditions.
Good. So where we categorize the patients, the victims, because whenever disaster happens, it's not that everybody is required to go to a hospital or go to a emergency, or even above that. So first is certain things like with minimum medical aid also the persons can be treated. So then the patients are victims are transported to the appropriate local medical facility for further diagnosis and treatment. So this is the whenever we talk of disaster plan, especially the medical emergency disaster plan, the first level is where there is a system in place of a localized casualty emergency management where the locally available medical resources are mobilized, and then the treatment and the stabilization of the patients is done. The patients or the victims are in a shock. It is not just physical treatment they need, but they also need, they are in a state of shock. So some sort of a treatment minimal is needed in the first level where their condition is stabilized, and triage is done where the medical personnel, the nursing personnel who are there, they categorize the patients and then do the needful. This is level 1. Then there is level 2. There is also a level 2 which is to be in place where a multiple casualty emergency system is in place, because at times some people might have got some injuries, head injuries, some hands, legs, all these things. So a multiple casualty emergency system is the second level. Then the third level is a mass casualty system. Emergency system is in place where the emergency is such that there are so many people who have been affected by it, and where the existing system is unable to cater. So then they seek the assistance of the state or the central governments. So these are the three levels. First level is where a localized one. Second is a multiple casualty management where along with local, they take the help of nearby medical institutions and nursing personnel at the district level or so. And then the third is it's a mass where the disaster has taken place on a large scale, so that is needed. So the, having these levels helps in planning for various levels of disasters. So the disasters, when we a good disaster management is not just mobilization of resources, but they also require emergency management also, because the disasters create certain challenges. First is they may put demand on the organizations, requiring them to see whether their organization is adequate, they are have the necessary strengths, capabilities, resources to deal with any emergency situation. Because at times disasters create such demand that the local organizations are not able to meet the needs. And disasters also need the help of local volunteers, individual volunteers as well as organizations. So that's why we say that the community based organizations, voluntary organizations, they play a very important role. So the disasters are situations where they require the participation of all these people. There are multiple organizations which are pitching in, and also at times they create new tasks also. It depends on the disaster, which type of disaster. Some disasters may create certain new tasks which we are not able to. So the disaster responsible organization has to take these things. So all these things put together, the adverse effect of or impact of both man-made as well as the natural disasters can be minimized. So it cannot be, we cannot say that it can be totally, the disasters can be done away with, it cannot, but the impact of it is minimized. So the basic, when we talk of philosophy of coping of disasters, the philosophy is disasters, they have wide ranging effects. They have political effects, they have economic effects, social, cultural, environmental on a country. So the disasters impact the country on all these fronts. Do you agree with this? Do you agree with this? The disasters impact on various fronts.
Yes, we
Yes.
agree.
So what are the
Yes.
various? Tell. How does it impact on various fronts? Political, social, economic, cultural. Don't you think disasters impact on all these fronts?
Yes, it does.
So how does it? Just tell me a little about how does it impact?
Yeah. For example, socially, when disaster occurs, then there will be displacement, and when people are displaced, their social cohesion is already lost, and they getting into new environment needs another also time to cope up and be able to adapt to the new social life in the displaced or where they are displaced. That is one. Along political ground, again, this can also cause a lot of social kind of riots, because when people are displaced, they get angry because they left their belongings, and maybe they will be
Yeah,
missing some of the important aspects that they used to get, and so there will be a lot of other issues that are related to crime, and even
yeah,
politically also the leaders within that period of time may lose like trust, and people don't feel like they're being taken care of. For example, now recently in Turkey, there is an election that is going on, and I hear people uh, talking against the other leaders because of the recent earthquake that has made a lot of destruction in Turkey. That is one of
yeah,
the example. Yes, over.
yeah, yeah. Adamu?
And yes, ma. In fact, economically, the disaster disrupts the business environment of the people, including their farms, land, and also destroy the marketplace and goods and services that are being rendered. Economically, it will impact, and
Ah,
also politically, it impacts in the such a way that sometimes there will be conflict between the leaders on the decision on how to approach the disaster and also the resources that are going to be utilized to attend to that disaster. So it also has that political impact, where so many issues will come in politically on the decision of what to do, when to do, how to do it, and how it can be coordinated.
yeah,
And also socially, it disrupts the normal social environment, like the family disintegrations as
yeah.
a result
Good.
of the death of
Social. Yeah,
children or the wife or separation. The flood will come and take part of the city and leave the other one. So some family will lose their loved ones, and that will lead to the breakdown of the family institutions and other things like that, which will affect socially and
yeah,
culturally, as my brother have said, some people will be forced to migrate to other part of the world, and they may need to adopt to the culture of those people to integrate. So
yeah.
that
Good.
one also is another challenge. Uh, thank you.
So thank you. So disasters, as both of you have said, well said, that it affects on various fronts. So when we talk of disasters, like whatever the recovery from these disasters also, it requires the need for large quantities of material as well as human resources in addition to the organizational or institutional capacity. See, all the institutions at the national, international level, they all come together. So this also requires the capacity. So what is needed? Because generally it happens that when we are talking of reconstruction, rehabilitation, governments immediate, whenever a disaster happens, they definitely pitch in the efforts. Then generally we find that as time progresses, they lose the momentum. Okay, it becomes a very routine activity. I'm sure it is there in all the media also. Media also, after a certain time, it loses interest, because whenever a disaster happens, it really plays a very important role. It gives the figures, it shows the intensity of the disasters and how rescue operations are being done, how relief is being done. But generally, over the time when the rehabilitation, reconstruction is taking place, we do not know much of it. Don't you think so? The attention gets lessened. So, when we talk of philosophy of coping with disasters, we need to have a systematic disaster response plan, recovery plan, which is very interactive and participative, which involves not just government, but non-governmental agencies, private institutions, corporate houses, industrial houses, and community agencies who all come together. So when we talk of disaster recovery, in disaster recovery, when we plan, what is required is, first, one should know who are all the actors involved, okay, in this process. Then, who are all qualified or who are all prepared, equipped to take up the tasks, okay. And then for each task, there needs to be a clear definition of authority, resources, and accountability. And all the actors, they have to be coordinated by a focal point. There should be a focal point which gives the attention and then which coordinates, because otherwise the government will be doing at their level, any international agency will be doing at their level. So all these things, then only the recovery becomes easy. So when we talk of disaster recovery planning, what are the important things needed? First is, it requires the participation of all the necessary departments. Like, for example, everything: engineering department, water works, food, information technology, all this, it has to be participative, and all policies or procedures in the disaster recovery plan should be laid down. Okay, the disaster recovery plan of any country, it should include all the policies and procedures for the government organizations, for private bodies, for community. How are they going to recover? But because whenever disaster takes place, it's not just the people, but various organizations also, they also suffer. The private organizations also suffer, like we have seen in COVID, like, how many organizations throughout it cut across every this thing. So the disaster recovery planning, whenever we talk of it, when it is made at the government level, all these things should be taken into account. And disaster recovery planning should have a clear chain of command from where the orders are coming, because it is a situation, it is a crisis situation. Everybody will function only when the orders and the communication come from a properly directed line of command. And the disaster recovery planning, it should be available with everybody. This is all ideal situation. This may not happen, but it is, we should know that this is the ideal situation where the disaster recovery planning policies, procedures, that should be available. Like, I should be able to say what is a disaster recovery policy of my unit. So it should be made available to everybody, and the procedures also should be rehearsed. Like, at times there are mock drills that take place in many places. So all these should be rehearsed, and time to time these have to be evaluated. So whether the procedures and policies that are laid down, if they are good, or if they need to be changed, if they need to be, some new things have to be included, all these things has to be a part of it. So understanding, these are the basic principles of disaster recovery planning. When you have these basic principles, then you can, you can reach the victims and also whatever the goals that are given. Otherwise, without any policies and which is plans laid down, it becomes very difficult, especially when we talk of teamwork. So what is required in case of disaster recovery planning is the team has to be organized at whatever level, whether you are having a search and rescue team, whether you are having a first aid team, whether you are having a food distribution and relief team. First, organize the team. Then next, you clearly allocate the roles and responsibilities to the people, and then make them understand the existing policies and procedures and prepare them to face the situation. And the training of all these members has to be an ongoing activity. So how this disaster management team or the disaster recovery team, how it functions, it depends whether first the team members know whether they are experienced in handling it, and what is the intensity of seriousness of the disruption or the havoc that the disaster has caused, and the emotional strength of the individual, which is very, very important. See, the team goes to the site, like for example, in case of earthquake, you find that there is so much of disruption. The rubble is there, the people have lost their houses, they are crying. So the emotional strength of the person is very, very important, because the survivors or the victims, they go through a very, very difficult phase. See, now we talk of the phases of a survivor. First is the impact phase. See, a disaster occurs, it has impacted them, like this is a trauma. This is a trauma that has been caused by their being exposed to abnormal situation. The next is the inventory phase. Okay, the trauma has taken place, but now the survivors are engaged to assess the damage. Okay, first for some days or some hours they are in a trauma because it has impacted them. They have to keep themselves and their families intact and alive. That is the impact phase. Next is inventory. Then one goes about looking at the place and see what are the things now left with them, what have they lost, what is left for them. Then the third is rescue phase. Rescue phase is where the emergency service personnel are involved and the survivors are busy taking instructions from them and able to rescue themselves as well as others in the situation. Then in the recovery phase, they try to adjust to the situation, because many a times many of them, like, they are in the relief camps. Okay, they have lost their homes. So this is the recovery phase where they really have to be very, very emotionally strong so that they are able to cope up with the situation. So these are the various phases: impact phase, inventory phase, rescue phase, and the recovery phase. So when we talk of disaster recovery planning, we also have to understand that there are post disaster symptoms. Don't you think that there are some post disaster psychological and physiological symptoms? The people get affected. As I just now said, there is impact phase. So they have, they face psychological or physiological problems also. Don't you think? What do you say? What are the various problems they face? What are the
Ye-
physiological problems? What are
ye-
physiological problems? Tell, Adamu.
yes, you're talking about physiological, right?
Yeah,
Yes,
they're
physiological.
different.
That one.
Ah,
That one has to do with what will affect the body, that is
hmm.
physically. That is anatomy and physiology are combined together. So that one has to do with injuries, the traumas, dehydration, malnutrition, and other things like that. That is the physiological
Yeah. See,
dehydrations
many,
and things like that.
yeah,
While
they suffer from
psycho
various types of physiological, as you said, like, they get nightmares, because somebody has experienced a disaster, maybe cyclone, flood, or any earthquake. They have been exposed to a situation, there is loss of appetite, like there
Yes,
could be some physical problems like pains in the body, lack of sleep, fatigue, low energy, because they have lost everything. Then what about the psychological symptoms?
good.
What are the
The
psychological?
the psychological symptoms can also be in the form of anxiety, depression, you know, suicidal tendencies. Yes, some kind of also sometimes psychological problems also do has symptoms that used to be manifested physically,
Yeah.
like the
They,
loss of appetite, like the fatigue
uh,
also.
mm,
Yes, like also the this thing, what will I call it? Running stomach, that is the diarrhea. Some response in such a way,
mm.
and other things like that, and also
And this,
nightmares,
yeah,
hallucinations.
yeah. See, psychological symptom like they feel isolated. Some of them, don't you think they feel isolated? That nobody is. They have lost their family. They have lost everything. So they feel isolated, and at times there is a feeling of numbness, helplessness.
Yes, all those one, if not attended, that is what will lead to depression and later to suicide. To suicide.
Yeah, it becomes this thing, and then there is also sadness, depression. There is sadness and depression, the grief, because no, it is a trauma. They have lost so much. They have lost everything. So apart, physical problems are always there, but then the psychological problems impact. Don't you think that psychological impact factors impact somebody very, very badly? Don't you think?
Yes, they do impact very well, and that also will affect the function, the recovery of that person drastically.
Yeah,
Yes, because if no matter how you try to rehabilitate him physically, economically, socially, if that psychological aspect is not taken care of, that person will not be able to integrate
yeah,
because that sadness will still remain with him and that
uh,
isolation will still be with him, and at times feeling of inferiority complex.
yeah. So psychological factors play a very important role. So see, it's very easy for us to, in general, to say like these are the things, but we all know that this really, when a disaster happens, it impacts so much that somebody has lost everything, and then they just get numb. So, and also this what the uh, intensity, and then how they feel, it varies from person to person, how strong a person is, okay, how much the person has lost. So because the impact may be mild, it may be severe, or it may be moderate. So all this, the disaster recovery planning has to take into account. In the next later unit, we deal with how to cope up, with this. How can anybody cope up with this trauma? So this trauma management is a very important thing. So the disaster recovery planning has to keep all this in mind. So when we talk of philosophy of coping with disasters, see, we need to keep in mind that the disasters are situations which has impacted the people to such an extent that it results with physiological as well as psychological factors. So these needs to be, and the long term rehabilitation also has to keep various factors in view, and the disaster recovery planning has to keep various aspects like how the team has to be formed, what are the allocation of roles and responsibilities, what is the chain of command. All these things have to be kept in place. Yeah? Yes? Anything? So this is this thing of philosophy of coping with disasters. So anything you want to add to it? Anything you want to comment on it? Tell. Hmm? So we
No.
go to the next unit. We go to the next unit, which is on dealing with the victim's psychology. Okay? How do we deal with the human psyche? See, we all know by now that disasters impact humans and everything, livestock also. Generally, the thing is, we don't take into account how the livestock has suffered, but livestock also gets affected in the most cruelest way. At least humans we can express, and then livestock, it becomes very difficult. Don't you think? Don't you think so? That we pay less attention to the livestock recovery and rehabilitation? Tell. What is livestock recovery? Hmm?
Actually, it's true. We pay less attention to the livestock because we are struggling we too to survive first. So we
Huh.
forget about the aspect of those livestock, which ideally they should be part and parcel of the disaster planning and management and implementation. But
Yeah.
unfortunately, even during search and rescue, you will see the concentration will only be on human beings.
Hmm.
So, and as you have said, that uh, unattendance to those livestock will lead to the most of our time to the extinction self and migration to the other part of the world. Those that
Yeah.
survive, and even they will change. There will be change in their attitude, behavior,
Hmm.
and even their way of reproduction.
True. So you think in your countries, like what is the this thing of livestock rehabilitation? Do you have good systems in place? Livestock rehabilitation, is importance given to livestock
That
rehabilitation? That's what I'm saying. Hmm? Livestock rehabilitation. So livestock rehabilitation in general is not, generally we don't give much attention to the rehabilitation of the livestock. That is the most saddest part, that generally we don't, which is very, very important, because they are unable to express. Yeah, Tombe. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks a lot for giving me the chance. I just want to be specific on this topic
Mm,
of livestock rehabilitation.
mm,
Yes, normally when disaster happens,
mm.
as my colleague have said, normally we first give emphasis for humans, and
Yeah.
then thereafter other aspect that are around the environment are also taken into consideration. When it comes to the aspect of livestock intervention, disaster response, yes, it is true that when a disaster happens, there are so many things normally that happens, distractions, and for the case of livestock, also they die.
Yeah.
And when they normally die in large number, the component of rehabilitation is that normally government or any other agencies that normally work in that recovery process, either being an emergency, either being a resilient approach. What normally people normally used to do, or agencies and government normally do, they assess the level also of severity or the
Yeah.
level of distractions when it comes to livestock. And then they also looked at how best can this one be recovered. The best thing that I normally do see happens is that when it comes to livestock, they do what we call restocking.
Okay.
The most affected communities, when it comes like they assess how many people have so far lost their livestock, and thereafter they, it's a kind of a resilient kind of a coping mechanism. These communities can be given, they can be restocked so that the as you have just discussed something there, issues related to stress and the rest of other things. For you to be relief,
Ah,
like when you lost everything,
yeah.
if people come to your rescue, there are certain things that people really need to give to you. Then you start building up your livelihood. And if this one is not if it is not done, it means it will be very hard.
Yeah. Good. Good. Good.
I think this is what I can say.
Yeah. Yeah.
It
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
it
Very
comes to
well.
talking.
Yeah. Yeah. You have put it well. So now, when we talk about the psychology of the victims, we are talking of the people, like how a person behaves to a situation. It depends on several factors. First is the experience with a similar event, whether I have experienced this event before or this is the first time, and what is the intensity of the disruption or damage that has occurred, and my emotional strength, how strong I am, not physical, emotional. And generally it happens that at this time some sort of a pessimistic feelings they set in within us, don't you think? We feel helpless, so all negative feelings set in, so it turns into panic. So these are the factors, that determine the psyche of a person. So as I have said before, there are various phases: impact, inventory, rescue, and recovery. So the reaction of panic and the stress, it varies from person to person. Maybe X may be very strong, Y may be at the other extreme. So what we need to do is, what are the factors that kept in mind is, first we need to have good trained persons who can show their skills and provide the necessary succor to the people. And also at times, there is need for medication also. They need to be given certain medicines in extreme cases. So one has to assess the situation and see whether medication is needed, and also monitoring of the symptoms. Like at times, even they go to the extreme of even committing suicide, depression, and all these things. So all these are important to be kept in mind. So stress management becomes a very important when we talk of victim psychology, because shock and denial, like, persons, anybody, men, women, children, they are all in a shock. So the thing is, first there is some denial. They may not accept the situation. So this is quite natural. They are not unable to accept or acknowledge that something stressful has happened to them. They become very, very numb, because they are disconnected with life. Just imagine a situation where they have lost everything. So they become numb. So they need to be given proper attention. So there are mood swings. So thoughts and behavior patterns, they are also affected by the trauma. See, they always think about the good old days where they had everything, how they enjoyed the life. So, the thoughts and behavior patterns. So the victim may find it very, very difficult to concentrate and then adjust to the present situations. Though there are certain emotional reactions also, like you know which become very important, and the interpersonal relationships also. See, why interpersonal relationships is there could be conflicts, like suppose somebody known to the person, that person's loss has been less, this person's loss has been more, in terms of property, or the damage that has happened to the family, there could be some sort of a balance in the imbalance in this interpersonal relationships. Conflicts may arise, like as we said earlier, physical symptoms also may arise, like for example nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, all these things, because disasters are situations where hygiene also gets a backseat. So all these are problems. So as I said, what determines the psyche of a person is the degree of intensity and loss. What is the degree of the intensity and loss? And what is the general ability of the person to cope up with this traumatic experience? How are they? Because individuals in emotional, challenging situations, especially, they face lot of challenges, like serious health problems they may face, mental, psychological. So all this. So what are the steps now that needs to be taken? What are the steps? First is help yourself and the family. What do you mean by this? Help. What are the tips that you can give? Helping yourself and the family. First is you have to help yourself and the family in such situations. Tell me, what are the things that you need to do? Just think. Yeah. Tell.
Yes,
Ah.
yes. Helping yourself and the family means in a disaster area, like
Mm.
once when it happens, you need first to move yourself and the
Mm.
family to a safer locations, and then thereafter you come for a rescue.
Mm.
Yeah, you come to rescue others, and whatever you have, you are belonging as well.
Yeah, you have to, as you said, it have to, yeah, Tombe. I think you have said, or you have something else to say. See, first you have to give yourself time to heal. You have to tell yourself, okay, this has happened to me. This is a very difficult phase of my life. So I have to be patient myself. Okay, first you have to think like that. First you have to heal yourself. Then you have to ask for support from people around to help you and the family. You have to talk out. Like, generally we keep our feelings inside, which is not good. You need to express it. Then you have to be part of the various groups. At times, in the village or a place where the disasters has happened, there are groups working, like NGOs, self-help groups, all this. You need to communicate to them. You have to come out openly. And you should seek the help of experienced professionals. There are psychologists who are counselors who are around, the government engages them, so you need to talk. And also, one has to try to get back to the routine as far as possible, whatever, like take time for exercise, taking food, all these things. So a disaster has happened, but then one has to first help oneself. They say no, self-help is the best. So you, whatever resources and capacities and capabilities you have, first you should try to help yourself. Another important thing is taking care of the children. Don't you think children get very affected? They are the most vulnerable. So what are the ways? Children of different age groups, they get affected in different ways, don't you think? Don't you think?
Come again.
Children. What are the various ways through which one can, you engage with children to come out of this traumatic experience? Here we are dealing with victim psychology. Okay, first is try to deal with your own psychology, like, try to deal with yourself and try to heal yourself. Then other important thing is taking care of the children. Children are the most who are affected in disasters. So they may become, they get nightmares. They have lost their toys. They have lost their this thing. They have lost their house. At least adults, as adults, we understand that it is a traumatic situation. What about child? A child, 1-year-old or 2-year-old child, what does the child understand? Like, where are their friends and where are their toys and all these things? So one has to spend time more with children, and you have to give them a playful atmosphere, and also tell them in your own way what has happened, and then let them come up with their thing. You should make them talk, and also see that whether they are engaged in the regular activities slowly. And also, if you are not able to, then you take the help of experts and make them talk to your children. And at times in disaster situations, wherever community centers are there, there are some elderly ladies and all who take care. So you should try to make the children mix up with other children. Maybe, their children, their friends have got separated, they are somewhere else. So one needs to take lot of efforts in taking care of the children along with adults. And many a times we need professional help also. So we are not able to do. So we need to take the help of psychologists and psychiatrists and mental health professionals in dealing with the trauma that occurs out of disasters. So I'm sure, do you have psychologists and counselors in disaster situations in your country? Do you have such facilities?
No,
You don't have?
no, we don't have here in South Sudan.
Okay, it's the same with all, and anybody you have such provision of such facilities? Because generally, as I said, we give importance to the physiological aspects, like, what are the injuries, damages, medical help, but generally we do not give much importance to the psychological aspect. So here we need the help of psychiatrists, counselors, who can, they have their own way of talking to the people, and they make them very comfortable, and they also come up with their problems, and then, they develop a sort of a bond. So involvement of these along with parents and children, it helps in overcoming the trauma. So what we need is counseling. As I said, we need to have counseling. Counseling is just telling them, making them understand what has happened. And the most important thing is, a counselor does this, or anybody does or has to do, is listen patiently to what the other person is saying. Because the person is trying to express something, trying to express a trauma that he or she has suffered. So one needs to listen patiently and allow time for discussion. These are all tips for counseling. See, it's not that we may not be trained counselors, but at times you also can act as a counselor. They need some sort of a emotional support that is required in disaster situations. So anybody in disaster situation can turn into a counselor. What is needed is, first you have to understand the problem, empathize with them, and then listen to them. And, like, for example, a small word like, saying that I see, okay, don't worry, this phase will go off. Things like this will ease the situation, and it gives some sort of a emotional strength to the victim. So all these things you have to empathize. What is needed is empathy, with that kindness, where you can talk to them. So empathy is something that one needs to instill in disaster situations amongst the people. You pat is at times, many problems when we face, somebody comes and pats and then puts a hand on our shoulder. Don't you think that it gives us strength? It gives they may not say anything, but just a simple pat, or a hug, or just like that, putting a hand on your shoulder gives you an assurance, don't you think?
Yeah, I think that shows like a kind of sympathy for what has happened, and little bit it gives some kind
Yeah,
of comfort, yeah, to the
it,
victim.
the other person feels that I am there with you, so no need,
Yes.
at least for the time being. Whatever we are able to do, we may do, or we may not do the a large this thing, but at least somebody at that point coming and saying, I am there with you, don't worry. Just a simple word like don't worry, it gives a lot of support. Yeah, Adamu.
Yeah, what you have said is right, and that is why we in nurses we believe that nonverbal communication is more stronger in
Hmm.
conveying the message than the verbal one. As you have said, when you tap your patient or you touch him, how are you feeling? That
Hmm.
sends a lot of message to him that someone
Yeah,
is empathizing, someone cares, someone is not discriminating, someone
yeah.
is not kind of disgusting with the situation. A lot of messages, and that will make that person to open up and say
Yeah,
out.
that's true, because that gives a lot of emotional strength, because disasters are situations where the psychological health gets disrupted. So at that time, if I come across somebody who is sitting before me, who is telling me honestly, like saying that don't worry, this phase will go off. Okay, you want food, you go there, you get it. You want water, you go there, you get it. These phases will go off. The government will give us something that we will be able to reconstruct, rehabilitate, build our homes. Like a person is dazed and in such a situation. So these are the certain counseling things, and also telling the elders also, don't worry, houses will be built, we'll be getting back to that places, and also telling the children, reaching out to them, help them, in playing, you can play with them. So all these things and helps, and only thing is one needs to be really genuine and honest when we give these things to them, like that emotional succor at that point. So once it is there, that brings a lot of change, because human psyche is very very important, which gets a backseat in disaster situations. Relief may come in the form of money, in form of food. Just giving it to them in a mechanical manner, it doesn't help. It may help, but then along with it, I'm not saying that that is not important, but along with that relief, and emotional support also is very very important. And since you all are, for certain things one need not be a trained, but a basic human interaction which is filled with empathy, love, will go a long way in dealing with the trauma of the disaster victims. Okay, anything you want to add? Then we'll take, yeah.
Yes, as you have said, this process need counselors, psychologists, psychiatrists, but sometimes when events unfold themselves, at times you are there, you need to also act as a counselor.
Hmm.
So for you to act as a counselor, even if you're not going to have all the qualities of the counselor, at least one should have the following. One shouldn't be judgmental. One should be empathizing, not
Right.
sympathizing,
Hmm.
and also one should be open, and
Hmm.
also one should be a kind of the kind a one that keeps secret, because in
Hmm.
counseling process, whatever the person tell you, you are supposed to take it to your grave, no matter the situation.
Yeah.
You never disclose what you have discussed with your counselee.
Yeah.
And
Good.
also, above all, the communication skills should be there. Don't always ask him close-ended question. If there is need to ask question, always ask open-ended question.
Yeah.
And always don't make decision for them. Just guide them and allow them to make decision.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good. So now we take a break of about 5 minutes and we come back and go to the other unit. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, now we take unit 15, which is the role of information dissemination. So we have discussed before also how information is very important, especially in disaster management, where people have to be informed about the disasters pre, during, and the post. So, as we were saying, communication is a very important aspect. So, in this, the media plays a very, very important role. The civil society organizations also play. What is civil society organization? What is civil society? What is civil
Yeah,
society?
ma'am. Civil society organizations. These are organizations that are not under government, but they're separate and they work to promote human rights, development, and the like.
Yeah. Civil society organizations, it's as you said, that it is an amalgam. Like, it has all, even NGOs, community based organizations, self help groups, they all come. So, the civil society organizations and the media, they have a very important role in reaching out to the people. One has to reach out to the people. As we were saying, that both natural and man made disasters, they cause a lot of damage to life, property, environment, livestock, everything. So, now, once a disaster happens, like how to cope up with that, and also how to make efforts to reduce the occurrence of this disaster in future is also important. So here the role of media, NGOs and civil societies is very, very important. So there is need for educating the people about the consequences of a major disaster and the warning signals, how they have to take. And in your country, you have any warning signals that are given, especially in case of cyclones and floods? Do you have any system? Yeah, Adam.
Yes, in Nigeria, we have a system of giving warning through the national television and radio station on the float based on the meteorological reports. So they use national televisions and radios to warn people with regards to disaster and the locations that are anticipating these disasters will occur.
Yeah. So apart from this, even the face-to-face interaction also is, it can be important. Like local governments, you must be having local governments at local level. So they also can have regular face-to-face interaction. There can be meetings, and there can be, you have any street plays also that are done. They do plays to educate the people, and campaigns are also done. you know where this is, and as you said, the print media and the electronic media also plays an important role. But one should be very important that how the message is given to the people, that is very, very important. Like for example, in case of floods and cyclones, like generally we tend to cling to the place, like we don't want to move. Okay, the most important thing is how to convince them to move to safer places. Don't you think that people generally resist when they are asked to move out of the places when a disaster occurs?
Yes,
Is
ma'am.
going.
Like in the case of my country, Malawi, we have
Hmm.
disaster-prone areas, which every
Hmm.
year disasters occur, mainly flooding. So we have what we call lower Shire, whereby the land is very low, and every year disasters occur. So
Hmm.
every year, the government and civil society organizations have been forcing people to relocate to higher lands, but they are refusing to say this is our ancestors' land. We cannot leave our ancestors here. So it has been a very
Yeah.
difficult time. Even as I'm talking
Yeah.
now, they have not even moved. So I am
Yeah.
agreeing with
That's
you.
true.
It's not easy.
It's not easy. It's not easy. So this requires, like, a long term strategy, and then they need to try to convince people before disaster happens itself. Suppose the disaster has occurred now, there is always a danger that it may happen again. So before that, they should try to tell them, like, what are the various elements, what are the risks, what are the various elements, threats to them, and then what are the various resources through which and why they need to move from there. So all these things, they need to be convinced. So the efficacy of this information dissemination is how effective it is. It depends on how well the people are convinced of it. Okay, how well they are convinced and they are abiding by the instructions that are given. So any message that is given should be able to tell about the immediate danger they are exposed to and where they have to move, what are the escape routes, and also should be able to tell them that they are not isolated. Everybody is with them and they should move. So because, as you said, they may not, there is a lot of hesitancy among them to go to the place, whether it is a community shelter, school, or anything. And also they want to stay back and protect their property and livestock. And also they feel that nothing is going to happen to them. They'll be able to save their family. So that sense of, the urgency, so that needs to be taken care of. And how authentic it is and how they are, whether they are able to believe it or not. So generally, what we find is when any warning given by the government is taken seriously, don't you think? Warnings given by the government departments generally is taken seriously by the people. At least they believe it. Don't you think so? Don't you feel? Like, as a common person, like, you go and tell them, but the same thing comes from government agency, they believe it and then they adhere to it.
Yes.
Because they feel that it is a government agency which is giving. So, there is nothing in that they have to adhere. So first is reaching out to the people and the other is reaching out to the world. See, this is where the international agencies, play an important role. So the reporting of the disaster should be authentic so that the world, the various organizations are able to come together. So reaching out to the community is important and reaching out to the world also is important. We know that there are many UN organizations, Red Cross, all these which come to this thing of the people. Now with internet, everything, the website is there. So all the requests by the governments are immediately the information reaches and then they come to the help of the assistance of the country. And the other important thing when we talk about information dissemination is role of the media. Media has a very important role. So generally the media tries to, yes, Joseph? Joseph.
Hi,
Yeah.
good day, all. It's Joseph. Today, I'm sorry not to attend the
Okay.
council today because like, I'm very busy here. We have some verification in our community, and I'm one of the auditors to actually work it out. And just
Okay.
see the people around that I'm actually going about now.
Okay.
Please consider my excuse.
Okay.
Yeah. Just
You
see.
can write, you can write in the chat box. Madam will.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Okay. So as I was saying that media is the one which can play a very important role, especially when disseminating information on disasters. So at the same time, the media should not create a problem. Don't you think many a times it happens that, a disaster has occurred people are working there, NGOs are working there, the international agencies are working there. Media at times, they just go there, the electronic media, they are asking them, they are putting a lot of questions to them. So at times, the time is not that suitable to, answer the questions or not, because it is an emergency. So a positive role of media should be, the media should be very sensitive to such situations. Don't you think so? There is nothing wrong in media covering it, but then, putting questions to the volunteers, to the organizations may at times create, some sort of a discomfort. Don't you think?
Yes, it's true. And more especially sometimes the kind of the question they ask. Actually, even you listener will not like those questions. Talk less of those that are supposed to respond to those questions.
Yeah. So, and all at the same time, I said media is the only, it can play a positive role by conveying the information to the government, to the international agencies about the intensity of the damage, what has occurred. And also community radios also are very, very important, like ham radios. They not only they convey the information, and that is also important. So when we talk of media, the media's role can be increased by, they need to change their role. They have to give instructions to the people as to how they can deal with the effects of the disasters, educate them about the preparedness measures, and also through positive reporting, through, good work that is being done, media can help in getting more donations from other countries. And also they can get public support also, support from the corporate houses and all these organizations, for getting the necessary relief. And also they also can disseminate information to the family members. And at the same time, they should not try to, as far as possible, they should not try to disclose news if it is considered dangerous to the people. At times, people, situations are so that the disaster situation is such a very sensitive situation that, at times some, not all information needs to be disseminated. So they can withhold information if they feel that that is not correct to provide it at that time. So at present, now you all know that the role of internet has also increased. So internet also plays a very, very important role. It gives the necessary information, and it at times provides technical guidance also. You get so much information on the net. So internet, the role of internet also is very important in information dissemination. And the other thing is role of civil society organizations. See, there are so many civil society organizations which comprise of NGOs, self-help groups, community-based organizations, and they play a very important role in identifying the needs of the people and coordinating the access to the donors. They provide communication to the people, and they constantly interact, because the government in any country will not be able to reach out to the people, you know because the people are scattered. It will not, the government also has limited resources, it may not be. So it always works with the civil society organizations. Like, for example, in India, we have various civil societies organizations. I'm sure in your country also you have various civil society organizations, which are basically, they are non-profit making organizations, and they work towards the alleviation of the people and then promotion of development. So all these things, especially in disaster situations, they do play an important role. And it is not just, they also conduct workshops, and they conduct training programs, and they hold exhibitions, and then all these things, they encourage research. And the basic thing is they develop a sort of a connect with the people. Don't you think that a community-based organization working at the local level, they develop a connect with the people? People have a lot of confidence on them. Don't you think so? See, when we talk of information dissemination, see, don't you think that the civil society organizations, community-based organizations working at the grassroots level, they have a lot of connect with the people, they are able to convey to them. And people also have trust and faith on them. It's not that they don't have trust and faith on government. Government doesn't have so many resources to reach out to the people in such a level, in such a great way, like in such a, in such a short time, and the distance, everything is far. So government has its own challenges, it has its own constraint, no doubt. It sends its personnel, everything, but then it needs the participation of the civil society organizations also at the local level. Don't you think?
Yes, I think that is the scenario in most of the cases, especially in the developing countries.
Because the civil society organizations, they work at the grassroots level, and they are able to have the connect with people, and they are able to disseminate the information. And many countries, you have a disaster knowledge network also, like, through this also the information is disseminated. So the basically, when we talk of information dissemination, it is very important that it is reached out to the community, to the affected public, through various means, the information getting disseminated to the world. And we have also seen how the media has a very important role in attending to the people at that moment, and also helping the government also in, as it gives the news about the impact of the disaster, the relief operations that are going on. At the same time, the role of media can be analytical, suggestive, informative, and at times the media also has the responsibility not to disclose information which it feels that it may be dangerous to the people, and then dangerous in the sense that it may cause unnecessary panic amongst them. So this is one thing. And the thing is, proper reporting helps in educating the people. And other thing is, the local media also, it is not just the national media, the local media also has to be engaged in this activity, in information dissemination. And these days we have internet, which facilitates the quick dispersal, dissemination of information. And the civil society organizations, international organizations, have an important role in information dissemination. And also the civil society organizations, which work with the people at the grassroots level, they have an important role. They have that connect with the people, and then that's how the information dissemination can be done in a proper way. Okay. Now the last unit actually deals with certain case studies. Like, of course, in this we have discussed, the in the Indian context and in international context also, where how the development plans have been made with community support, and how the disaster mitigation activities have been taking place. Like, for example, when we had landslides in India, and we have earthquake long back, a major earthquake. So what was done? So all this basically, the case studies, when you go through the unit, like, it generally brings out how the people have been involved at the community level, and how the government agencies have been, the efforts of the government agencies have been put together. All these things have been, and I'm sure that when you read it, you will be able to link it to your countries too. So you have anything to share of any case study, anything that happened in your country? Any small example where people, everybody, the government, NGOs, they all had put together their efforts, something to learn. These case studies generally help us to learn. Anything you have to share? Yeah.
Yes, like here in Nigeria and Borno State,
Mm.
northeastern Nigeria, where the issue of the disaster of conflict, the issue
Mm.
of Boko Haram took place.
Yeah.
What the government did there, apart from the effort of NGOs, the government purposely created another ministry of rehabilitation and repatriation
Mm.
and of the internally displaced person.
Yeah.
So government built a standard houses
Mm.
for the IDPs and make
Mm.
sure that all the basic amenities are available there. And they
Mm.
went back to other neighboring countries where the people fled to another neighboring state to go
Acha.
and take inventory of those people and allocate those houses to them free and
Okay.
a kind of went there officially and took them back to the houses and allocate and give them the houses and also paid for the electricity bill for almost 2 years for them
Mm.
and also engage them in some minor skills of activities to do to earn the living.
Good. And what about other countries where, the floods or any cyclones, earthquakes have taken place? You have anything to share that how the government and all the, networking took place, how everybody came together? Does it happen that any disaster? Yeah. Tell Sani Salis.
Hello, hello, good day, colleagues.
Yeah.
The knowledge that I wanted to share is about the COVID-19.
Yeah.
So, government play a role to build isolation center in all the states in Nigeria, and
Mm.
also the partners also uh, involved in such activities.
Mm.
Uh, Support with grant
Mm.
to participate in the COVID-19 response, and also
Okay.
even like this September also they are about to send a 1 billion for each state for the strategy plans against that COVID-19. So that was
Okay.
the knowledge I wanted to share for my
Mm.
colleagues. Thank you.
Mm.
Good day.
Okay. Good, good. Anybody? Anyone else? You must be coming to know through newspapers or anything. Other.
Yes, as my colleague said, also one of the part of the response of the federal government of Nigeria toward
Mm.
the COVID-19 pandemic, there was a lot of lockdown
Mm.
and that affected a lot of businesses and
Mm.
small scale industries. So
Mm.
the government of Nigeria also responded toward that form of rehabilitation by giving a soft loan grant
Okay.
without collateral. So you apply through the microfinance bank NIRSAL and you will
Mm.
access that loan and you will be given momentum of at least 9 months
Oh.
before you start paying back. And the
Mm.
payment will be if it is around 2 million or 4, you pay back in 5 years' time.
Okay.
So that is monthly, you will be remitting some amount of money instrumentally until you pay back.
Okay. Okay. Good, good. Anything else? So now what we'll do is we'll discuss about, like, now the units are over. Tomorrow the rest of the units will be taken up. Okay, that's the last class. So anybody has any doubts on project, each one can raise it. project. If any one of you is taking project work, do you have any doubts?
Well, actually, mine is not a doubt, but I have submitted my proposal. Now it's almost 10 days or more than that. I didn't receive any response from my supervisor. I emailed him and also still no response. I don't know whether he
Okay.
is in a good shape or
You have
condition.
sent it to Dr. Kohli?
Yes,
Okay. Okay. I will. Okay. That will be taken care of. You have sent it to him. Okay.
yes, but
Anything,
no response.
anything, any like how to make any other thing you have? Anyone has? Somebody had wanted to discuss initially. Yeah, Dumba.
Yes, yes. Mine is not related to project, but also around there. You know, the class is divided like into two. There are those who are taking the project, and then there are those who are doing towards participatory management. So I'm one of those who are doing towards participatory management, and I don't know when we are going to start the classes because in the schedule it was scheduled, and then
No, in the schedule it's there. Madam will be taking up participatory.
okay, that's
Ah,
good.
they have that. After this, this over tomorrow, she'll be taking up. They have a schedule. She'll be intimating. Okay.
Okay.
Hmm. And
The
anybody else?
schedule is there in our WhatsApp group. He can check or his email.
Okay. Uh,
Yes.
Salisu, you have raised a query. You have any query? So most of you have, whosoever has opted for project, have sent their proposals to your supervisor. Have you all? If if
I'm not
whosoever,
sure all, but I have done my own. I have sent my own.
you have
I don't
sent.
know for the others. Yes.
Okay.
Good,
Yeah.
good day, ma.
Tell.
Hello, good day, ma.
Yeah, good day.
Okay, my name is Mohammed Haruna. So actually, I haven't submitted my proposal.
Okay.
Yes. So I don't know if I will be time before closing.
Yeah, you can send it. You
Oh,
have been told how to make a proposal, no? So you send it.
oh, okay. Thank you.
Okay. You send it. You send it as early as possible. Okay. Anything
Thank you
else?
very much.
Adamu, on what's your area? You are writing a project on. What is your area of research project? Anybody else has yet to make? So you can expedite the work and send it. Okay. Any other query?
Sorry, ma. It's like you are talking. My network was cracking.
No,
Did
I
you
just was
actually?
asking what's your area of project work you have taken,
Okay.
chosen?
The area I have taken is that knowledge and attitude of students, nurses towards disaster management and preparedness.
Okay, good. Okay. So you want to interview people and then do it?
Yes, ma.
Okay. Okay. Good. Anybody else who has taken here project proposal, like made the proposal and all? Okay, then. I think now tomorrow we conclude the thing. Okay? Because now most of it is like we reiterate the same, the units say, but we relate it to the area of study. Okay? So I hope you all have sent your assignments also. You have submitted your assignments. What about assignments?
Hi, ma'am. As for me, I'm finalizing today, this evening, because I have too many. That's as for me.
Okay. Okay. Okay then. Okay.
As for me, I have submitted my own.
Okay. You've put it on the LMS?
Yes, my on LMS.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
yes,
I have
yes.
received a confirmation email that it has been
Okay.
received.
Okay. Okay then. Okay then. Being weekend, you complete your assignments. Yeah, Shetima. Yeah.
Okay, good day, ma. Please, I want to ask, when is the deadline for the submission of proposal?
Submission of the project proposal. No, I think you can submit it now because slightly the session I think seems to have got delayed, but you can submit it. First the proposal. Once the proposal is approved by the faculty, then you can start preparing the report. Okay.
Okay, ma.
So you
Okay.
submit it as early as possible. Okay. Being weekend, I think this weekend you work on it and submit. Okay.
Okay, ma. Thank you.
Okay. Okay then. Then we call it a day. You can go back to your work or do your PGDDM assignments. Okay.
Okay, ma.
Okay. Good day. Then we
Thank
meet
you for
tomorrow.
time.
Hey, ma'am. Thank you so much
Okay.
for your time.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. My pleasure. Tomorrow we conclude. Okay. After that, MED 004, ma'am will let you know. Those who have taken.
Okay, ma.
Okay. Okay. Good day. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Good day.
Thank you. Good day. Good night.
Okay. Good night.
Adamu, Hala Adamu ya.
Barka da warhaka, ya kake?
Lafiya galau. Na ce ni waye za a tura assignment din ne.
To, assignment a LMS ɗinka za ka je ka tura.
Sorry, proposal ɗin kai. Na ga an bada email na Professor
Yawwa,
Sabiu.
ko ita prof ko kuma Professor Koli ko ita wannan
Okay.
Professor Uma. Cikinsu sai ka zaɓi ɗaya kawai sai ka yi mailing ɗinta that you want him or her to be your project guide. In ya yi responding ko ta yi responding, to sai ka tura proposal ɗin.
Okay. First zan yi mail ne kenan.
Mail ne shi yasa aka yi sharing mail ɗinsu a WhatsApp group ɗin su biyu. Kaga mail, kaga email address ɗinsu ko?
Na gani.
Yawwa, to sai ka zaɓi ɗaya daga cikin su sai ka tura. To dama in ka tura in shi ne ko ita ne cikin su wanda ya going through ne approving zai baka certificate ne ko da suke cewa nan abun nan, to za ka yi amfani da shi sai ka tura wa kuma su school faculty. To in suka yi approving su ma sai ka ci gaba da aiki. Ina tura masa wallahi tun ina ji April nawa ne har yanzu dai ban ga response din shi ba, na sake masa mail har
Shikenan, ina ko na abu da zan dan taba kai WhatsApp.
Yawa da mu ina da dan tambaya da Allah da ina kan hanya.
Allah ya sa na sani.
Ina
jin ka. Na'am, ina jin ka.
Yawa, nace zallan proposal ne za a rubuta a tura ko a topic ne za ka bayar.
A'a, sai za ka yi proposal nan. Akwai guideline din ai akwai shi a takardan, baka da shi ne na guideline din?
Wallahi ba na da shi sa.
Ka duba WhatsApp group an yi sharing din sa. In babu sai ka mun magana a WhatsApp sai in tura maka.
Maybe yayi nisa zan maka magana ta WhatsApp. Insha Allah sai a tura mu.
Yawwa, guideline za ka yi proposal ne kamar yadda ka sani na chapter 1 2 3 sai ka tura masa. To amma kafin kai din akwai yadda suka yi format din yadda za ka tsara sauran pages na sama din kafin ka wanda za ka sa proposal din a kasa.
Okay.
Kamar za ka rubuta sunanka, institution da enrollment number ɗinka da wawa haka shi yana.
Yadda dai za ka tsara ta package.
Yawwa.
Ba da na gode sa. Zan maka magana ta WhatsApp insha Allah.
To ba da mu, Allah ya samu dace.
Amin ya Allah, Allah ya samu dace. Na gode.